en route to his third MVP. Still, the Packers would lose in the NFC Championship game to Tom Brady and those Bucs. And now on draft day last week, our own Adam Schefter announcing that Rodgers does not want to play for the Packers again and has requested a trade. RC with some very interesting comments. Ryan?
When we spoke about Peyton Manning, what was it? It was about how cerebrally he approached the game, his study, right? His work, his dedication to the sport of football. We never talk about that with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe there's something that goes on in that building that says, you know what? Once he's not one of the best throwers of the football we've ever seen, then his love for the game, his dedication for the game isn't the same that'll allow him to play till 45.
Max, talk to me.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to play till he's 45. He's only 37. I keep saying 38 because he's going to turn 38 this season. Stephen A. pointed out earlier in the week, actually, he doesn't turn 38 until December. So it's really his age 37 season. And I think it's quite reasonable, given that there is the argument, Stephen A., that it's the curse of the gifted. When you're so gifted, you don't have to learn the fundamentals, like less gifted athletes, right? But there's another argument. When you have a broad base of skills, in other words, you can do a lot of things and you're athletic, you have more things to fall back on so you can decline for longer and have a longer career. I would say this. I think it's pretty safe to say, given how many quarterbacks have performed well until right around the age of 40, that we don't have to look at Aaron Rodgers as Tom Brady. He'll be 43 and still elite. If he just does this till he's around 40, that's 4 more seasons. Stephen A., 4 more seasons is enough to pay him, guarantee him $40 million a year and give him the highest guarantee in the history of football, make it over $150 million. So RC may be right, but who has ever played till 45? If Rodgers just makes it to 39, 40 at more or less this level, even a little less, that is plenty.
Well, that's not the issue. The issue is responding to what Ryan Clark had to say about Aaron Rodgers. And for me, when he broke down what he broke down, he said his love and dedication for the game isn't the same, that will allow him to play until he's 45, and how you're not hearing people talk about him and the cerebral element that he brings to the game of football or whatever. Here's what I would say to Ryan Clark, who y'all all know we all love and respect the hell out of. He does a great, great job for us. But I would challenge Ryan Clark on this. You are a Super Bowl champion. You also lost the Super Bowl. Who'd you lose to? Did that quarterback that you lost to, whose name was Aaron Rodgers, did that look like somebody that didn't have and didn't grasp an elite understanding of the game? I don't think that's the Aaron Rodgers I saw. And Aaron Rodgers has been in the NFL for 16 years.
Why are you bringing up old stuff?
And I'm just saying, he's been in the NFL for 16 years. First 3 years he sat down. The last 13 years, he has been a starting quarterback in the National Football League. In those 13 years, let's go to the last 11. In 11 years, could you name 4 quarterbacks better than Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Each year?
No.
I'm not even talking overall. Year after year after year, for 11 years, he has been a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. In the last 10, he has served as the greatest talent we've ever seen at the position, maybe, this side of Patrick Mahomes. That is it. And so for me...
Ryan's not saying that. Ryan's just saying that he might not have the same love for football.
What I'm saying is, okay, what I'm trying to say is, how do we say something like that when a guy has done so much at such an elite level? You got to remember, Aaron Rodgers has had to deal with a lot, for example. I think it's well documented. His parents were relatively very, very religious, and as a result, that was something that was difficult for him to vibe with. When his brother was on The Bachelor, he was talking about him, for crying out loud. I mean, this dude has had to deal with a lot of stuff. Okay, he hasn't been as he's introverted, but in terms of being insulated, the way that Drew Brees was to a degree, Tom Brady was to a degree, and others, Aaron Rodgers hasn't had that.
Well,
the only evidence we have for Aaron Rodgers is that when that brother steps on the field, he's one of the elites we have ever seen consistently year after year after year. And that's where I would challenge Ryan Clark to provide a better explanation than what he provided.
Max?
Well, I would say it sounds to me like people are assuming that since Aaron Rodgers has options, maybe he loves things that aren't football too, more than another player who might just, you cut open their head, you see a football. That's all you see in there. And that's the kind of guy you want, right? And that's not Aaron Rodgers. So I understand why intuitively it seems like, well, if he's not 100% in love with football and only football, how is he going to age? How is he going to continue to run through the brick wall? Because it's a brutal sport, even at the quarterback position, really, as much as that's changed. And I get that. And maybe that's true when he approaches 40, 41, 42. My point is, one, that's a long ways away. And two, it doesn't, just because someone has other interests or isn't thinking only about football, doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to love football just as much as someone else who only thinks about football. I mean, you ever hear of someone having like more than one kid, right? You think you love the one kid any less because you have two? So Aaron Rodgers may have more interest than just football. That don't mean he doesn't love football.
I'm just at a struggle. I don't understand how anybody could even question that. I would hope he has other interests. If you're living in Green Bay 6 months out of the year, my God, don't you want to have other interests? I mean, are you kidding me?
I know, but it's comparing to guys like a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady that supposedly like eat, breathe, and sleep football. I get what he's saying.
You sure about that? I mean, Peyton Manning. Look at Peyton Manning on ESPN Plus. Does that look like somebody that all he ever cared about was football with all the interest he has going on?
Just playing devil's advocate, but I have to go to break, so it's time to say goodbye anyway. When we come back here on First Take, the debate we have all been waiting for to the Pittsburgh Steelers, while also throwing some shade toward former teammate Juju Smith-Schuster. Villanueva, talk to me.
For us as an offensive line in Pittsburgh last year, it was incredibly challenging that we knew we had to go with these game plans that involve passing the ball potentially the entire game. And so the mentality, when you have a balanced offense or when you run the ball, it's obviously better for the offensive line. I'm assuming it's not as fun for the wide receivers because they're not getting all the catches, they're making the TikToks, and they're having fun on their social media.
He totally just called him out for TikTok routines on the field, and I'm not mad at it. Stephen A., this is your squad. I'll start with you here. Fair or foul?
It was absolutely fair. And I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I'm a Mike Tomlin fan. I'm a Kevin Colbert fan. I've been diehard Pittsburgh Steelers is the only football team that I've ever rooted for, okay? Outside of, I'm a native New York, of course. But here's the deal. The Pittsburgh Steelers, and I love Mike Tomlin. I'm glad James Conner is gone. Their running game has been atrocious. An absolute atrocity, an abomination, considering that this is the Steelers. This is a team that became famous. It wasn't just because of the Steel Curtain. It wasn't because of Lynn Swann and John Stallworth and Terry Bradshaw. It was also because of Franco Harris and Rocky Blyer. And years later, who do you have? You have guys like Le'Veon Bell running the football. How about the bust, Jerome Bettis, who was just on the air with us a few days ago before Le'Veon Bell. And then you give us James Conner. And because you got James Conner, who obviously is a great story and a solid player, I wish him nothing but the best, but he was not the answer for the Pittsburgh Steelers with their running game. So what do? You had Big Ben Roethlisberger, fresh off of elbow surgery, throwing the ball 608 times. 608 times. Villanueva's right. You don't do that to an offensive line. You don't get to run block. You don't get to push forward. You've got to retreat and protect the quarterback. 608 pass attempts. That's what they did. Okay, everybody and their mother knew that you was going to throw the football all day, every day. That's not an ideal position for an offensive line to be in. Now, obviously,
especially
they weren't
when
great.
Your quarterback's not a spring chicken either for Big Ben.
Yeah, they weren't great. But here's the other side to it, Molly. You got to look out for them too. He's an offensive lineman. He knows. He's experienced. He would